Okay, we're going to do the last item on the practice test here. This is video number 3. And what we need to do is we need to insert a shadow behind our drawing. Okay, this is where I am drawing my sprite right here. And so the shadow needs to be drawn before that, otherwise the shadow will be drawn on top of your image and then you won't be able to see your image. So we're going to draw it here. We need it needs its own vector. I suppose I could mess with the sprite position of this, but I'm just going to leave that. And I'm going to create a new vector 2 here. Okay, so vector 2, we're going to call this shadow vector. And we're going to set it equal to, in Windows, the shadow comes from the top, or the sun comes from the top left, so the shadow goes on the lower right. So I'm going to add x, 5 onto the x from the sprite's position and 5 onto the y. So it's going to be a new vector, and it's going to be, it's going to be a sprite vector, or sprite dot position dot x plus 5, comma, and then sprite dot position dot y plus 5. Okay, and then I need to draw the shadow 5 times. So the reason this question is here is just to give you practice with a for loop. So normally if you want to go to 5, you take int I equals 0, semicolon, go to I less than 5, I plus plus, and that'll give me a value of I from 0 to 4. And then inside here, I want to actually draw it. Now I'm already drawing it here. So I'm just going to, rather than rewrite that whole thing, I'm going to do a Control C here. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to paste it in. Okay. Now the texture is going to be the same. The position is going to be different though. This time the position is going to be the shadow vector. Rectangle will be the same, but the color is going to be black. And I think everything else is going to be pretty much the same. Now, if I do this and I never change the shadow vector, then I'm going to end up with a just a shadow that's offset. And I'll show you, actually, it doesn't come up very well with just 5 here. So I'm going to make this 25. I'm going to make this 25. And I'll make this 25, even though in this case I'm just be drawing it 25 times in the same place. So let's run it and see what we get. And you should be able to see a shadow that is way offset to the lower right of the sprite that we've got on the screen. Okay, like that. But I want the shadow to be continuous. So what I need to do is I need to move the shadow every time. Okay, and every time I move the shadow, I need to subtract 1 from its x, and I need to subtract 1 from its y. Come on. There we go. And now let's run it, and instead of it looking like it's hovering above, there should be a smooth line connecting my sprite down to my shadow. So that's all there is to it. Just create a vector for your shadow. Update that vector every time, whether you add to the x or the y or subtract from the x or the y. Depends on which corner you want the shadow to go on. And then there's a draw command in there, and that's all there is to it. So now let's do the draw string. Let's put the string on the top right instead of the top left. So if I want to do that, I've got to change my game state vector. Okay. Right now, if I go back and look, let's right click on this and let's find all references. There can't be too many. And here is where I initialize it. I set it equal to the top, the left, and the top of the playing area, so it's going to be in the upper right hand corner. If I run my program real quickly, you'll see the name appears right up here. I can't get on the playing window here, but there it is. So that's basically like 0, 0 on the playing area. And now what I want to do is I want to draw it in the upper right part. Okay, so I'm going to need a vector for that one. So, I've got a vector. It's called game state vector right here. So, but I'm going to modify it. So, game state vector, and I'm going to get its x coordinate, and that's going to be, I want to do my font and dot measure string. I'm going to measure the string and the string I'm drawing here is going to be GameState.toString, so that's what I want to measure. And that will give me an x value that is how wide the string is, and then GameState vector y equals my font dot measure string, and it's the same string that we're measuring. Okay. So now I have the height in x. I have, I'm sorry, the height in y. I have the width in x. I need to back off x units. Now that I think about it, I don't really need this because the game state y vector is not going to be pushed down. It's just going to be the screen. I think I called it screen. Did I call it playing area? What did I draw right here? Playing area. Okay, it's screen texture, but the rectangle is playing area. So it's just going to be the top of my playing area. Okay. And now if we run it, let me see. So I want that to be the top. This, I have to subtract that from the right edge of the playing area. So I'm not done yet. I got to go in here and put playing area dot right minus the width of the string, and that'll back it off to the left, whatever the width of the string is. Now let's run it, and hopefully we get paused in the upper right hand corner, and we do. So that's how you would get the text up there in the upper right hand corner, flush against the top and flush against the right. Now it doesn't look like it's flush against the top, but when the fonts are drawn, they always leave a little bit of space above and a little bit of space below. So that's that extra space, and so everything is working fine. So that's the end of the practice test.